everybody, welcome back for another sublimation tutorial. Today we're going to look at how we sublimate onto the Dollar Tree glass cutting boards. They're really fun to make, makes a really cute kitchen decoration or just any decoration around the home, or even a really cute gift idea for the holidays coming up. So we'll go ahead and show you how I sublimate on those to make a glass cutting board that looks like this. Really cute. This one's more Christmassy time, but you can do pretty much any image that you would like to do it on there. So the items that we're going to need is the glass cutting board. They come in a square and also a circle, so it just depends on which shape you're wanting. Also, for the sublimation process, we're going to want, there's two ways to do it. The first way is the Oracal Permanent Vinyl 651. This one's gonna give it a better result. It's just gonna show up better because it has a white background, but there is a second way to do it where it's gonna have a clear background as well, and that's just with a thermal laminating pouch. When you buy them, it does come in a pouch, so you can tear them in half and then you end up with two halves. This is just one that I've already used. You'll then need your printed sublimation images. I have two because I'm going to show you two ways to do it. I use the Sawgrass paper. I use it with my Epson printer and it actually works really well. And then the sublimation ink is the Hippoo Ink that I get from Amazon. It's really nice, gives really vibrant colors. It's just a good ink to use and I enjoy it. So the next things you're gonna need are your tools. I have a little scraper tool for the little knots that are on the back, and I'll show you how we're gonna remove those. You'll need some kind of X-Acto knife or just something to clean up your edges with extra material. A scraper flattening tool to make sure there's no air bubbles or pockets. Some scissors. Some heat resistant tape. I don't always use it, but if you want to make sure your image isn't going to move, just make sure you have that. And then these next items, they aren't necessarily needed, but I do like to have the Goo Gone because when you remove the nubs on the back, there's a little bit of goo residue and it helps get it off really well. And then just Windex for glass items to clean it really well, removing any fingerprints or debris that might end up under the sublimation. All right, so the first thing we need to do is take our glass cutting board, and do note there is a kind of more textured side and a more smooth side. The smooth side is the side that we're gonna do everything on, not the textured side. We're gonna go ahead and remove the little nubs here, and that's why I have the little scraper tool. You just get under it and pop them off. It's really easy once you get them, and just toss them off. You can either place them back on at the end, or you can leave them off, whatever you prefer to do. All right, so we got those off. I'll go ahead and take my Goo Gone, and I just squirt a little bit right on top of the little dots. And you don't need a lot. A little bit goes quite a long way. Just like that. And I'll go ahead and just kind of rub it in. I don't need to rub too hard because I'm going to take that scraper tool again and scrub it off, and it comes off a lot easier just once you've applied the Goo Gone, and then just scratches off super easy. You'll want to do that in all four corners. Just like that. Super easy, not a big deal. And then after I do that, I'll go ahead and take the Windex, just real gently squirt it on there. You don't need a lot. And then we'll just clean off the surface there. All right, and you want to let that dry up. All right, and then the next step is going in to do the sublimation process. All right, so the first one I'm gonna go with is the thermal laminating pouch. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how that one looks first. So when you have your laminating pouch, there is a shiny side and there's also a dull side. You wanna make sure when you lay your lamination down, that your dull side is up. And you're gonna take your glass slab here, that smooth side is gonna go down. So you're gonna have the smooth side on top of the dull lamination side. So your the textured surface will be facing upwards. From here, you want to use your butcher paper or parchment paper. I use, it works for me, but whatever works best for you is what works for you. So we'll go ahead and lay that there. And then with your heat press, if you have a heat press, you can just put it down 60 seconds at 400 degrees works for me. I just have my little Cricut and it works just fine. I just have to do sections a little bit. All right, so we'll do 400 degrees at 60 seconds just to tack on and melt the lamination onto the back side of the glass slab. All right, so that's all done. Always be cautious when you're working with heat and glass. It's very hot. The lamination, you can kind of manipulate it and hold the lamination sides and move it as needed, but don't touch the glass until it's cooled down enough to be able to handle it to prevent any burns. We don't want that. You'll see at this point that there are some kind of wavy edges, some small bubbles. It's okay because we're gonna reheat the lamination sheet a few times, so it'll start flattening out as we go with the heat process. So we're done with the first press. We'll go ahead and take our top parchment paper off. Sometimes the lamination paper will stick to your parchment paper, and that's okay because it peels off really easy, so you don't really need to worry too much about that. So with the clear, this is why I don't always use my heat resistant tape because I don't always tape it down when I can see it. But you're gonna lift your image up and you can see that it hasn't quite transferred yet. But even so, you can just lay it back down and just make sure it's all lined up. And that way you can lay it back down and still have it where you need it to keep repressing. So with these, you're basically heating through the glass to get to the ink. So it is going to take a few times. Sometimes it takes 10 presses, sometimes it just takes a couple. It really just depends. So I'm going to go through and do the presses that I need, and then we'll come back and finish up and I'll show you the end result. All right, so that was our final press. We'll go ahead and remove the sheet here. And I'm gonna take my glass off of my image. And like I said, you can see it's turning brown because we've sublimated it so that the actual paper is starting to burn a little bit. That's okay, as long as you're not actually touching the paper. So the sublimation glass, we do at this point want to let it cool all the way down. But you can see it's actually really cute. It will be a little more see-through than the other one will be because the ink is a translucent ink, so it's going to be see-through. But the more you do it, the more presses you do, the more vibrant it's going to be and the less see-through it's going to be. But it'll always still have some form of see-through. So I'm going to let this cool off completely all the way before we start trimming any edges up. While it's cooling, I'll go ahead and move into doing the Oracal one and showing you the process of that. All right, so I have my next glass cutting board. I've already got it cleaned up and ready to go. So I'll go ahead and get the Oracal 651 vinyl. So it's a little bit opposite of doing it when you're doing it with the lamination sheet because you're gonna put your vinyl on top this time, just to get the vinyl on first. So the textured side is actually facing down now, and the smooth side is gonna be up, just until we get the vinyl onto the board. So you can go ahead and either cut it out exactly with a Cricut or just cut it with a pizza wheel. This is actually how I like to do it. It's just usually gets it a smoother texture for me, and there's not a whole lot of bubbles that I have to press out. So this is just the technique I use, but whatever works for you to get your vinyl onto the glass cutting board. Okay, so what I do is I peel a tiny side of my vinyl, and I just peel it back just a little bit, and that's what's going to be my starting point as I'm laying it down. And it doesn't matter which side you start on, it just, as long as you get it on there. I'm going to lay my vinyl facing upwards with the sticky side down, and remember that the smooth side of your glass is facing up. And we're going to go ahead and get this just attached to one side. So you can see I'm just barely attaching it here. And so there's the corner. I'm just really smoothing that down before I do anything else, because that's gonna kind of determine how well it lays down. From there, I just flip it up a little bit. I pull on my little tab that I have prepared and just kind of have it laying over my arm. And as I'm pulling, just kind of flattening it down. And that way you can see it's going on very smoothly, and you don't have a whole lot of bubbles that you're gonna have to worry about burnishing out later on. All right, so you have your vinyl laid down. Like I said, you can see some bubbles in here, but it's not as bad as what it was gonna be if you just kind of tried to fit it on there. And then you are gonna have excess if you do it this way. And for me, it's okay. I just go ahead and cut it off. Don't cut it all the way to the board, but cut it off enough to where we can kind of work with it still. Because later on, it's gonna be easier to have a material that you can hold on to when you're trimming off the edges. All right, so I just kind of have my edges like this for now. From this point, you will have the textured side facing up, and your vinyl is going to be on the bottom side from this point on. At this point, you can go ahead and smooth out any bubbles that you might have. I do have a few more than I thought I was going to, just because I was kind of going a little bit quicker for the sake of the video. But if you take your time, you're really not going to have that many bubbles. And also the heating process will kind of smooth them out as well for you. But just take your time when you're laying your vinyl down. That way you don't have to worry about it later. All right, so from this point on, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to trim off one side for measuring purposes when I lay my image down. So you'll just go ahead and take it very gently, poke through because you don't want to tear it, and just slide it right across the board. And it'll be a little bit jaggedy, a little rough, but that's fine because once you've pressed it, it'll harden up a little bit where you can go and clean it back up. All right, so now we'll go ahead and take our image, and for my image, for when you're doing a full coverage image, I do it just a tad bit larger than the plate. I think this was 7.75 and I ended up doing my image at an 8 just to make sure it's going to be placed properly and have enough room for me to kind of see where I'm placing the glass plate. Now that we can't see through it anymore, where the vinyl, you could see through it and see where you're placing it. So we'll go ahead and lay our glass cutting board down. And I like to have my edge, my open edge, facing downwards. That way I can see where I'm lining up the edge. All right, so I have that lined up, and that's also why I make the image a little bit bigger than the plate. That way you can also see a very slight outline of it. and you can make sure you're lining up properly. You can lift up these little tabs also, and you can see where hopefully you can see where the outline is on that side. And it's actually the same all the way around. There's gonna be an outline. So from this point, make sure these little tabs are down, and we'll do the same thing and put parchment paper underneath. Again, I'm not gonna tape with heat resistant tape. You can if you want to make sure your image isn't moving, but I don't, and again, I'll show you why. It just depends on preference, honestly. All right, so we got that under there. And we will again cover the top as well with the parchment paper or butcher's paper, whatever you prefer. 400 degrees for 60 seconds. And again, it's gonna take a few times to really get those vibrant colors to come out. All right, so that was the very first press. And don't be surprised by this. You're not gonna see a whole lot for the first time unless you have a heavy duty press and you did it for quite a bit of time. So we're gonna go back in and do it again. You will notice that your little sides are gonna start curling up, and that's okay because they do peel back, and you'll be able to go and cut them off later. So cover back up. And same exact thing, just press again, 400 degrees for 60 seconds. And the more pressure you have, the better it's gonna be. But I can't obviously put a whole lot of pressure with just a hand press. So if you have one that clamps down, you're gonna have more pressure. All right, so second press, you will start to see your image coming through. And again, it's just how the process works. We're gonna just keep doing it a couple times. Like I said before, my heat is mostly centralized in the center, which is why it's only in the center. So because I just have the small one, I'll go in the corners and the sides as well, just to get all the colors. So this will take a few times to get all the vibrant colors out. All right, so I'm just gonna stop here and just show you what it's kind of looked like at this point. I have done 5 rounds at 400 degrees for 60 seconds. And this is what it's like so far. You can still see it's a little bit faded in areas. So I'll go and repress around there. Your little side should be able to peel away there. But you can see how much has come through that vinyl paper, and this is actually coming through. So it's actually really cute, it's really vibrant, and this is the top of the cutting board that you'll cut on when you're using it. So it's actually a really cool process. I'm going to continue to do the process for a few more times in the faded spots. All right, so that is that final press for that round. So as you can see, everything's kind of brightened up even more in those spots that were faded out. I'm going to do maybe one more right there and just a little bit. But you can see this is the process of doing it. Same thing, your image paper is going to kind of brown a little bit because it's been heated so many times. But this is how you get that really cute glass cutting look to sublimate onto them. It's really a cool process. So we'll go ahead and let this cool off, and then we'll clean up around the edges and also clean up the laminated sublimated glass plate as well. All right, so while we're waiting on the other glass cutting board to cool off, we'll go ahead and clean up our edges with the laminated board. And this is where the X-Acto knife comes in handy. You flip it over to where the lamination side is, and you just go ahead and poke a little hole, and you're just gonna slide your blade right across the edge of it, and it's gonna get a really clean cut on there, as you can see. And if it's not super clean, you can always go right back over and just clean it up, just like that. Do make sure you have a fairly fresh blade on there, or it's gonna have a hard time cutting straight. It's gonna be kind of choppy, which I probably should have changed mine, but it'll be okay. I'll go ahead here and clean it up though. All right, so we got those edges cleaned up. And that's kind of what your the lamination one is gonna look like. It's gonna be fairly see-through unless you have something white behind it. That's gonna kind of give that more more opaque look to it. But that's why we use the white vinyl to really get those that color on there. I'm not a huge fan of the lamination one. It just doesn't lay as well, but again, you can do it that way. It probably just needs a little bit more heat applied to it to really get it melted onto the glass. So I mean, again, it is really cute. Still a really cute way to do it. It makes a really cute design, okay? So we'll go ahead and get our other board and we'll show you what that looks like after it's been cleaned up as well. All right, so we now have the vinyl sublimated cutting board cooled off. You can handle it. You will notice that the paper is now stuck to the back of the board. That's pretty normal unless you can find a way to not get it to stick like that. But it's pretty much melted to the vinyl. It's okay. There's a way to get it off. Generally, I like to actually let these cool off for a few hours. But for the sake of time with this video, it's just cooled off enough to where I can handle it. And I guess it's kind of better that way because then I can also show you in the case that it doesn't come off fairly easily for you. There's a way to get it off. It just takes a little bit of legwork to do it, but it still comes out just as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then, as I said before, you have some little edges that'll kind of melt on, but it does peel off pretty easily. You can see there, I'm just kind of moving it back and it'll come off. And your image hasn't been affected at all because it's actually sublimated on the back side of it, which is really cool. So we'll go ahead and take care of that also later. So for now, we're gonna go ahead and remove the paper. The slower you do it, the better. It's not gonna tear as much and you won't have as much leftovers. When it's cooled off all the way, it's even better. But if it's still hot, you're just gonna be peeling back your vinyl because it's not actually adhered until it's cooled off. So as you can see, the paper is still stuck there. I was expecting that, but you can see that it's coming off. And I'll go ahead and keep doing that. You just want to be slow about it. Okay, so like I said, I was expecting for it to pretty much be stuck on the back there because I didn't let it cool off long enough. But in that case, you can see actually right here, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see where the paper is not even on there. And it's just that the vinyl that's on there, which is really cool. So you can see it's actually kind of peeling off right there. And that's pretty good. I mean, if you can get it to peel off, that's great. Or you can get a wet rag or even submerge it, the bottom part of it, the paper, into water, and that'll just loosen everything up. I just have a wet rag just to kind of show you here. Just when you get it wet, turn my heat press off. When you get it wet, it just rubs right off. So you can see that is coming off, and then you can just use either a scraper tool or your nail, and it comes right off of there. The parts where the actual paper is still a little bit stuck on there, it'll be a little bit harder. You just gotta get the top layer off, kind of peel it, and it comes right off. So like I said, it'll take a little bit of legwork. I'll get this done and then I'll show you what the final product is. That way you don't have to watch me scrape on the back of this glass board. All right, so I got most of it off there. You can see the image is on the back. There is still kind of a layer of paper on there, but I just wanted to show you that that's how you get it off. Like I said, the drier it is and the more cool it is, the easier it's going to be able to get it off. But that's just a quick way to get it off if you're in a hurry. That's how that goes. So now the last thing you have to do is just go through and trim up your edges. Again, I like to go back with my X-Acto knife, flip it the cutting board side down, and have all your little layers, your edges upwards. And this is where it came in handy to actually be able to have something to hold on to so you can hold it as it's kind of lifting. Same thing, I go and poke a little hole, but I do lay it down a little bit more than just straight, because when you flip it over, you don't want to see the white sticking out, but you also want to be careful because you don't want to cut parts of your image out. So we'll just go like that, lay it down a little bit more slanted, if you can see there, and then again just slide it across. And it does again help if you have a fairly sharpened blade or a fresh one. All right, so now that we have the white edges cut off, you can't really see anything, which is good because you don't want to be able to see the bottom. That's what it looks like. It's pretty cute, cute little Christmas design. And then this is the laminated one. It just kind of depends on what you prefer. I do prefer doing the vinyl one. It just comes out with a better result, and it just looks better. So that's how you sublimate the dollar store glass cutting boards. It's really cute. It's a really fun project, and it'll be a good gift idea. If you did enjoy the video, if it was helpful for you, go ahead and boop that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share for others so they can get helped as well. Have a wonderful day and happy crafting.